earlier than usual to accommodate a number of our members who are also due to participate in very important deliberations on another committee. So welcome very much to our hearing to consider the nomination of a very fine candidate for appointment to the grade of Admiral and to be Chief of Naval Operations. Admiral Daryl Caudle and his family are here. Thank you for being here today. As Commander of the United States Fleet Forces for the past 4 years, Admiral Caudle has been responsible for the readiness, training, and deployment of naval forces. He's uniquely suited to guide the Navy through today's complex challenges. The U.S. Navy handles critical maritime missions that no other nation could shoulder. Our Navy is unmatched in its capabilities. No other Navy can operate complex naval exercises in the Pacific, defend Israel from Iranian ballistic missile attacks, and prosecute a campaign against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen, executing all these missions nearly simultaneously. Accomplishing all these objectives is no easy feat. Admiral Caudle has championed a ready fleet, targeting a goal of 80% surge combat readiness to ensure forces are prepared for rapid deployment. He also started the important task of rethinking force generation models to consider how we can more effectively generate combat power. We must start addressing the global demand for United States naval presence by increasing the supply of ready ships, personnel, and equipment. Last week, this committee released the text of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2026. In addition to reforms proposed by the Forged Act, our bill seeks to address maintenance challenges faced by the Navy's surface fleet. The Senate's plan adjusts the contracting strategy for ship repair. We would like to see the Navy give a clear demand signal to each shipyard and bring them into the planning process much earlier. Additionally, we proposed authorities that are meant to reverse the inefficiencies in current processes by empowering the fleet to oversee maintenance. I would like to hear from our witness about these reforms and his strategies for boosting readiness to meet global demands. The committee's NDAA would help correct serious deficiencies in the Navy's budget by proposing additional support for the service. Billions of dollars are misaligned between the Navy's budget request and the recently enacted reconciliation law. If confirmed, Admiral Caudle must navigate these fiscal realities in order to keep readiness and modernization on track. I'm hopeful that Congress will unite to raise the defense top line, closing these gaps to ensure our Navy remains the world's preeminent maritime force. Fortunately, the reconciliation law gives the Navy a transformative opportunity. It includes $18 billion for shipbuilding, $5 billion for unmanned systems, $5 billion for rebuilding the maritime industrial base, $5 billion for munitions and missiles, and $2 billion for ship spare parts. These investments are necessary, but they are no substitute for good management. And we're going to be expecting that from our nominee. Leadership starts at the top, and I hope our nominee and Secretary Phelan will build an immediate partnership. The next Chief of Naval Operations will lead our Navy into the most dangerous threat window our country has faced in generations. Let me quote Admiral Hyman Rickover. In everything we do, we must ask ourselves, does this directly advance our preparation for war? We all seek peace, but the surest path to preserving peace is by building unmatched strength. I look forward to hearing from our witness on how he will strengthen our Navy to meet the challenges we need. And with that, I turn to my friend and teammate, Ranking Member Reed.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Caudle, welcome, and congratulations on your nomination. It's well-deserved. Thank you for stepping forward to continue a long career of service to the nation and the Navy, and let me extend my appreciation to your family, too, because they've been with you every step of the way. Admiral, you've been nominated to be Chief of Naval Operations, and I believe it's important to start by acknowledging the unusual conditions around your nomination. In February, President Trump abruptly dismissed Admiral Lisa Franchetti, who was not even halfway through her tenure as Chief of Naval Operations, and gave no stated reason for the dismissal. Let me take a moment to salute Admiral Franchetti, who served this nation with distinction and honor for more than 4 days and led the Navy with great skill. The committee then waited 5 months for your nomination and this hearing, and during that time, Admiral James Kilby worked tirelessly to cover the duties of both the acting Chief of Naval Operations and the Vice Chief. And I want to commend Admiral Kilby for his commitment and admirable performance. But the question remains as to whether the actions of the administration have and will continue to have an effect of undermining the ability of naval leaders to do their jobs. I hope, in fact, that will be the case. They will do their jobs. Admiral Caudle, I think we're all glad to consider your nomination today. You have a wealth of experience to bring to this role, including your current position as Commander of Fleet Forces Command and prior leadership assignments in Strategic Command, and importantly, as a submariner. The U.S. Navy remains the finest maritime force in the world, but it has struggled to grow and maintain its fleet. For several years, the service has fallen well short of its shipbuilding and deployment plans. The number of vessels, including an aircraft carrier and multiple destroyers and frigates, are behind schedule, in some cases by several years. And I would also note that the Virginia-class fast attack submarines and Columbia-class ballistic missile submarines, which are critical for maintaining our undersea advantage and nuclear deterrent against competitors like China, are both facing construction delays of over a year. I'm also concerned that deferred ship maintenance, reduced steaming and flying hours, and canceled training may have created readiness problems within the Navy. And I will ask going forward for your views on these challenges. I would note that the United States' greatest comparative advantage over China is our global network of allies and partners. The agreement between Australia and the United Kingdom and the United States to collaborate on nuclear submarine production through the AUKUS partnership is a meaningful step forward. Successful implementation of this plan will require responsible oversight and a stable industrial base. And Admiral, I hope you will share your views on what we have the capacity to produce now and in the future, and how we can provide the budget and resources to match the demand. Finally, your highest priority must be ensuring the readiness of your sailors to perform their missions. In recent years, the Navy has struggled with quality of life and morale challenges within the force. If confirmed, you will be expected to support a culture of leadership, trust, and teamwork throughout the fleet, and to champion the care and well-being of our sailors and their families. And Admiral, I would ask that you share how you plan to carry out these responsibilities. Thank you again for your willingness to step forward to lead the Navy at this important time, and I look forward to your testimony. And again, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Reed. Now, Admiral Caudle, we ask you for your opening statement.
Well, thank you, Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of the committee. It is truly an honor to appear before you today. I'm deeply grateful for the confidence of the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of the Navy in nominating me to be the next Chief of Naval Operations. I view this nomination as a solemn opportunity to ensure our nation's maritime dominance is never surpassed by competitors or adversaries. I know full well the number of American families who depend on our nation's armed forces to keep them and our American way of life safe from harm. This knowledge comes firsthand from my own family. My parents, who are watching from heaven right now, imparted upon me the significance of service to our nation. My late father was an Army veteran from the Korean War. He knew what service and sacrifice to a higher calling meant firsthand. Like so many Americans who serve their country, his infectious pride from his time in service made clear the honor and fidelity that comes with wearing the cloth of our nation. My mother, who was so proud of my naval service, had a way to see the quality in a person, the qualities that can only be instilled and honed by the American way of life that we can never lose or allow to be compromised. I'm forever proud and grateful for the unwavering love and support of my 4 daughters and their husbands. Jillian and Luke, he's a Marine Corps officer at Cherry Point, North Carolina. Morgan and Jordan, he's a Navy sailor on board the USS Mason down in Mayport, Florida. Noelle and Billy down in Charleston, South Carolina. And here with me today, Haley and her boyfriend Grant from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. My wife Donna behind me, who is also here today, has been by my side for the last 21 years, not only providing continual support to me and our own family, but also embodying a steadfast dedication for improving the quality of life, readiness, and resiliency for all Navy families. She knows, like me, that our sailors are the Navy's most enduring competitive advantage and that a stronger Navy means a more effective Navy fleet. We are both kept young and motivated by our incredible 5 grandchildren who are truly the game changers in our life. Our country and its citizens are in the midst of a crucial era, defined by global competition and technological saturation and unpredictable threats that challenge our American dream. Within this context, our Navy finds itself central to what will likely be the most important chapter in the 250-year history of the incredible story that defines American naval dominance. Years of shrinking fleet size and diminished shipbuilding capacity and on-time repair delivery execution have manifested themselves as persistent challenges, persistently masked by unquestioned naval supremacy throughout the last 3 decades. As China continues to grow its naval strength and the potential for peer naval conflict grows at a steady pace each passing day, the veil is slowly lifting on the impacts of poor choices made decades ago, which leveraged a perceived myopic peace dividend and now pressurizes and oversubscribes our decision space for the choices we face today. These choices will similarly ripple into our future, with impacts that could, without intervention, shape the future design and overmatch of our great Navy. Our maritime fighting forces must continue to be lethal, resilient, agile, and globally present, capable of deterring conflict and, when called upon, achieving decisive victory, delivering peace through strength derived from our credible and persistent combat power from the sea. We must be on an enduring path to deter and defeat threats far into the future, but we must also be ready now to fight tonight if called upon. This duality of urgency, being ready both today and tomorrow, means we cannot choose one at the sacrifice of the other. The protection and prosperity owed to American people demands both, seamlessly integrated, realistically affordable, and highly effective. To achieve this, if confirmed, I will relentlessly pursue full spectrum readiness, modernizing our fleet's capability, scaling readiness capacity, and aggressively forging our resilient and resourceful sailors who bring all that combat power to life. I also plan to deepen integration across all domains, from sea, air, cyberspace, and undersea like never before, massing effects from multiple vectors, platforms, and environments, seamlessly integrating these effects with the joint force along with our allies and partners. To outpace our adversaries, we must lead-turn them with thoughtful approaches to warfare, harnessing innovation to take longer strides at a faster pace, relying on the ingenuity, skill, and brilliance of the American warforce and the reimagined industrial base. By leveraging modern, modular, and scalable platforms, investing in human capital and warfighting excellence, and integrating capabilities across all domains, my sights are locked in on a Navy that is not only lethal and survivable, but also adaptable and sustainable, ready to fight and win for decades to come, securing freedom of navigation and projecting power where and when it matters most. I'm truly honored for the opportunity to continue to serve in the world's most powerful Navy. I look forward to the opportunity to work closely with this committee and with our nation's elected congressional leadership. I'm grateful for your time today, and with your consideration of my nomination, I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Admiral Caudle. And let me just point out that a number of our members are being excused to go to an Appropriations Committee markup. So We will continue to work with them and get a number of questions in. Thank you, Admiral, for your very powerful statement. I agree with it wholeheartedly. We have some standard questions that we ask of all military nominees, and I will ask them now. Simply keep your microphone on and answer yes or no. To exercise its legislative and oversight responsibilities, it is important that this committee and other appropriate committees of the Congress be able to receive testimony, briefings, and other communications of information. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes.
Do you agree when asked to give your personal views, even if those views differ from the administration in power?
Yes.
Have you assumed any duties or undertaken any actions which would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No.
Will you ensure your staff complies with deadlines established for requested communications, including questions for the record in hearings?
Yes.
Even this hearing, perhaps. Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes.
Will those witnesses be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes.
Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify upon request before this committee?
Yes.
Do you agree to provide documents, including copies of electronic forms of communication, in a timely manner when requested by a duly constituted committee, or to consult with the committee regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such documents?
Yes, Chairman.
And then let me ask a question which we have asked of all of our nominees this year. Much of the funding in the Defense Reconciliation Bill is unspecific in the Reconciliation Bill because of our rules, and will technically be at the discretion of DOD, though we have provided recommendations for them. A quick yes or no, Admiral. Do you commit to follow the Congress's spending recommendations in defense reconciliation unequivocally?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And now let me, I noticed you mentioned manpower, and I appreciate that. On recruiting, there's some talk that we might, in addition, in attempting to get our numbers up, we have lowered standards. How do you plan to ensure the service does not become reliant on permanently lowered standards?
Senator, first let me just say thank you for the time we got to spend together in our various meetings recently, and that you quoted Hyman Rickover in your opening, and I think part of my goal is to carry his principles into this job if confirmed. And so standards are at the heart of his philosophy, and of course mine as a career-long submarine officer. So in no way, shape, or form have we lowered any standard to what we deliver, which is our most precious resource, our sailors to the fleet. And so to meet recruiting obligations, there have been changes to policy in the last several years that what I would characterize as increasing access to our Navy and utilization of our future sailor preparation course and how we leverage that to ensure that they enter boot camp at the highest levels, coupled with their AFQT scores, I think has in no way lowered the standard. And then at the end of the day, all sailors that graduate from boot camp meet the rigorous standards of that course to the letter. The A and C schools that they have to pass meet all those standards to the letter.
Okay, well, just be aware that there is that concern, and we wish you well on that. I've served as a junior member of this committee for a long time, and then as chair of Sea Power and ranking member of Sea Power. And in that connection, this committee has become convinced over time that programs in the high schools like junior ROTC can build a long-term recruiting pipeline, and we're sort of moving away from pretending like that's not a great recruiting tool. And as such, we have directed, not just a request or not just a suggestion, we've directed that we raise the number of junior ROTC opportunities around the nation. Will you commit to following the law as we've put in NDAAs over the past and maintaining and increasing investments in programs like junior ROTC that build long-term recruiting pipelines?
Chairman, I'd definitely commit to that, and I'm a fan of that, and learn more about that in the preparation for this. And I would say we maybe haven't gone deep enough, and we ought to also be reaching into the middle schools to make sure we're making people aware of the Navy and service to our nation.
And of course, they have the added benefit of building citizens, good citizenship, and an agreement to go extra steps in responsibility. We get better high school graduates, we get higher grades, we get better attendance, and better preparation in the civilian job market. Okay. There's a Navigation Plan 24. You're very familiar with that, are you not?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, with regard to integration of autonomous systems, 80% surge, enhancing training through virtual environments, and strengthening maritime operations centers, do you support that? And is there anything that needs to be substantially changed in that Nav Plan 24?
Well, Chairman, the navigation plan, I think, did a great job at identifying all the critical capabilities that we need to fight and win. And the prioritization of those has been heavily invested in our ability to deliver the capabilities, in particular against our most pacing threat of China. If confirmed as the next CNO, I will probably reemphasize my obligation to sailor quality of life, which I think is extremely important, and really quality of service, which is the combination of quality of life and quality of work. And what I term the foundry from my time at Fleet Forces, which is the compilation of all the unaccompanied housing, schoolhouses, piers, infrastructure, hangars, really the bedrock by which we launched the Navy from, I think needs additional attention. So in addition to the capabilities that are captured in the navigation plan as it currently exists, my emphasis will definitely be on sailors and their ability to conduct business in a most effective way.
Thank you very much. And we may go into that further. Senator King, you are now recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, congratulations, and thanks to you and your family for your commitment to this country and for your willingness to step into this very important role. First, I want to convey some congratulations through you to your mates in the Navy for the incredible performance of the Navy in the Red Sea. I have to mention at least one of those vessels was a Bath-built destroyer, but the performance, I've had multiple briefings, was really extraordinary and reacted to a difficult situation extremely well. So if you would please convey the congratulations and thanks of this committee and the Congress for that bit of bravery, courage, and military technology and manpower. It was a great effort. Thank you.
Senator, I will pass that.
I also, on a parenthetical, want to thank you and thank the Navy for sending ships to Maine. And I want to emphasize why that's important. We were talking about recruiting. One of the problems in our country today is that we've closed so many bases that young people don't see people in uniform anymore. So having a ship at the Rockland Lobster Festival or the Eastport 4th of July Parade, or I'm sure other coastal communities in this country, makes a difference in showing the flag, if you will. And I hope you will continue that practice because, again, I think it fits into the recruiting effort, but it also just notifies our citizens of the importance of the Navy and what you're able to project.
Well, thank you, Senator. I completely agree with that. Thank you for the time we got to spend together. Thank you for what Maine gives the Navy. From the top at Cutler, at our fixed submarine broadcast site, all the way down to the bottom to the disputed location of Portsmouth Naval Shipyard.
Aren't you a diplomat?
But thank you, sir.
Senator Shaheen isn't here. You can say it's in Maine. Well, I really appreciate that. Now, one of your important roles as CNO is as a military advisor to the president. And it's critically important throughout history, and at this time as any other time in history, that you be willing to give your best military advice regardless of the preferences of the president. This is a famously strong-willed president. Are you willing to give the president advice he may not want to hear based upon your best military analysis?
Senator, I am absolutely ready to do that. I think it's an obligation. I've sworn an oath to do that, and if confirmed, I will do that with my utmost ability.
I appreciate that. That's you may be tested on that, but that's that's exactly the attitude. Otherwise, we're not serving the president well or the country well. We talked about industrial base. It was touched upon. One of the things that's missing, and it has been missing, and this isn't on your watch, is the 30-year shipbuilding plan. We always talk about the industrial base. One of the things the industrial base needs is a consistent demand signal. And part of that is a 30-year shipbuilding plan that says to the private sector, here are the ships we're planning to build, here's the schedule, here's what we're looking for in terms of the modern Navy. I hope that that can be one of the things you attend to on your watch, is producing that overdue 30-year shipbuilding plan.
Well, Senator, I often joke in my office a bit that you can't change a 30-year shipbuilding plan every year. That's called a one-year shipbuilding plan.
And that's what we've had.
Yes, sir. And so changing year 31 is okay, but not year one. But, sir, you have my complete commitment on that. And I'm a big fan of multi-year procurement, incremental funding, multi-ship buy, anything that can stabilize our precious private and public shipyard workforce with clear planning demand signal. I'm an advocate for.
Well, that's absolutely a very important observation, and it's, as you say, the consistent demand signal. It allows the shipbuilding community to hire and maintain their workforce. We can't have troughs in terms of the demand. You and I talked in my office about the issue of availability. And my observation has been if Carnival Cruise Line had the same availability level as the U.S. Navy, they'd be out of business. Now, I know there's a lot more complicated ships, but we can do better than 50 or 60% availability. I hope you agree.
Sir, I agree. When I was at Miami Fleet Week, I had the opportunity when I was there to meet with the Norwegian Cruise Line executives. I know we're also working with Carnival. We need a better approach to how we're doing maintenance, and learning from the best in the world certainly should be on the table. So I'm committed to learning from them. The ship classes are different, of course, but the practices of how they prepare for their availabilities, I think, is right for us to learn from.
Thank you. Final question, and I'm out of time, but I hope you will pay attention to the subject of directed energy, which I think is a very important capability. It's a directed energy shot is a lot cheaper than a $4 million missile. So the budget, the prior administration grossly underfunded directed energy. I hope that's something you will look at carefully and support, because I think that's the future of naval warfare.
Senator, my master's degree from the Naval Postgraduate School back in 1990 through 92 was in directed energy. My thesis is on high-powered lasers. I've not seen the Navy do an adequate amount of effort translating the research and development into shipboard use. We have the one instantiation on Preble. It's not enough, and I can agree with you that if confirmed, I will make that a priority, because it is the infinite magazine, if you will, especially against certain targets.
Thank you, Admiral. You just got my vote.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sure all of us will be asking for copies of that thesis by noon today. Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Admiral. My thanks to you and your family for your many years of service and sacrifice to this country. The Navy's recent operations in the Red Sea against the Houthis showed us just how fast munitions are expended in these modern conflicts. It highlights the need that we have for, I believe, a more robust defense industrial base so that we can quickly replenish those munition stockpiles. Do you have any suggestions on steps that you would take to help increase that munitions production capacity?
Well, Senator, thanks for the time we got to spend together on a couple of occasions and all the conversations we've got to have. That's a large project, but I can tell you some priorities that I would look for. First of all, we have way too many sole source vendors that are underproducing. So what happens is we try to hold our contracts accountable for the primes, but they're being held hostage by components they can't get in time, which ends up delaying the overall delivery of the munitions. So we need to work through that. There are some efficiency steps of where we move around our munitions to too many places before final assembly. So those are just waste steps. So how we actually gear and tune our industrial base to streamline the production more efficiently has got to be part of that. I often tell to my team that we roll a Ford F-150 off the assembly line every 20 hours, but it takes me greater than a year to build an SM-6. It's just unacceptable. And so the Defense Industrial Base, it has got to come along with the Navy and working with this committee with some innovative ideas of how to streamline the process where we translate the incredible R&D side of what we're able to do in the United States with more emphasis on the production side. And I don't know that the existing Defense Industrial Base is geared as well as it should be for the production side of all of our business.
Thank you. I hope you'll be firm in your suggestions on how we can better approach that. The Columbia-class submarine, it's delayed, I understand, by about 17 months. What more do you think we can do to get that back on schedule?
Well, we anticipated some delay. And if you go look historically on the first of class, the Navy routinely delivers the first one from the initial concept to its first deployment, anywhere from about 15 years at best to up to 20, 22 years. And so that's obviously not good, but that's historically where we find ourselves. So Columbia is an incredible platform that's going to take us into the 2080s. The technology on board that is like no other ship ever built. So the program managers, the Navy, and the Electric Boat, and Huntington Ingalls Newport News Shipbuilding, we're a team on this. So we're working hard to go try to pull that schedule left. You do have their time right. It is about 18 months behind. So we're working some things, making sure that we don't fall behind on advanced procurement of materials, and that we're lead turning anything we see that may be a stop to the component assembly of those production parts. There's no good answer to that other than just kind of some great project management and leadership at the work site.
Okay. I'm concerned about the current nuclear modernization programs of records. They are necessary, but they're not sufficient that we have. The force design structure we have today, it was decided back in 2010. If confirmed, how would you work with STRATCOM to determine the force structure that we need that's going to be sufficient to really be a credible deterrent to two nuclear peers that are threatening our homeland and threatening the world?
Well, Senator, I'm concerned about that too. It's a math problem. And so we're going from a force of Ohio class that have 20 tubes with 4 that are out of commission due to New Start, but a class that has 14 ships with 24 potential tubes down to a class of 12 with 16 tubes. So there's going to have to be some sophistication and thinking about how we do the operational plans at U.S. Strategic Command, because General Cotton bears the risk of that new force structure design. So I have to work closely with Strategic Command to understand that and how the peer competition is growing in the nuclear space, with China growing, is going to be handled with the new Columbia force structure.
And as you work with STRATCOM, as all of you work with STRATCOM to meet these threats and be able to come up with a plan that's going to be sufficient, how important is it for this committee to listen to you?
Senator, I think it's very important to listen to me. I think we are, bring a lot of experience. Again, I'm a 40-year veteran in this. And so there's things that we can always learn, but we do have a lot of experience in this exact problem set.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
very much.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator Fisher, and best wishes in the Appropriation Committee markup. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, Admiral, and thank you and your family for your service to our country. To determine or to ensure the fitness to serve of the nominees who come before any of my committees, I ask the following two initial questions, which I will ask of you. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
Admiral, the Navy is currently building a new dry dock at Pearl Harbor to support the Virginia-class submarine maintenance. And this construction project is the largest in DoD history at nearly $4.5 billion, but has faced significant cost overruns, including an $834 million increase just last year. Additionally, the project is now about 4 months behind schedule. Should you be confirmed, how do you plan to ensure the dry dock construction remains on budget and on time?
Well, Senator, let me just say I'm a Hawaii sailor. My wife and I love the island, 7 years there. I look forward to getting out there with you and touring that dry dock. It is a national asset.
Yes.
So I share your concerns. The Navy's ability at Naval Facilities Command has historically not been good at estimating the cost and schedule on our dry docks. We have improved in that area and worked hard to do that. Unfortunately, the Hawaii dry dock was subject to that. It's unfortunate that those cost overruns occurred. If I'm confirmed as CNO, I will work with the team to do the best I can to get that back on plan and back on schedule, ma'am.
This is such a massive project that I do think that it requires your personal attention. So I'm glad that you intend to go to Hawaii. And when you do, please let me know when that happens, because I would like to join you in that
Yes,
visit.
Senator.
Would you commit to being personally engaged and making sure that this project comes in on time and on budget?
Absolutely, Senator.
Thank you. As you well know, in 2021, there was a giant fuel spill at Red Hill that impacted some 90,000 plus residents in Hawaii. And there are some ongoing resources that will need to go toward what is going on at Red Hill, including defueling and making sure that the environmental issues attendant to closing that facility is supported. So how do you plan to prioritize the necessary long-term environmental remediation at Red Hill and also ensuring that the Navy provides a safe drinking water system to the military and the surrounding community? Because that was one of the major problems, that there were wells that were contaminating potentially the water system that the people of Oahu rely upon.
Senator, you have my absolute commitment on this. We want to finish the Red Hill defueling and cleaning process on time and on schedule. I look forward to working with you personally, my environmental team, and to make sure that all facets of the parts that the Navy's responsible for are completed on time and to the maximum extent possible.
And I think you probably understand that the DoD is engaged in very important lease negotiations in Hawaii to enable mainly our Army and Marine forces to be able to train on the Big Island, and that the entire incident involving Red Hill led to a lot of uncertainty and questions from the people of Hawaii as to the military's engagement in Hawaii. And so it is very important to engage with the community, and I would like to have your commitment that you will prioritize that kind of sensitivity toward making sure that that the military does not continue to raise issues as to whether or not we can count on the military to do what is right.
Senator, you have my commitment to that.
I have some other questions for the record, but let me get to one that I hope will be a very easy yes. As you know, the United States has not ratified our commitment or our participation in UNCLOS, and especially as what is going on with Russia, et cetera. There have been your predecessors who have said that supporting U.S. accession to UNCLOS would be a good thing. Do you agree?
Senator, I agree from the Navy perspective that the provisions in UNCLOS from a maritime piece, my equities if are captured by that. It is my understanding, and I'm not steeped in this, that the lack of ratification of that deals more with, at-sea mining and some of the definitions and possible constraints that UNCLOS could have on our ability to do what we need as a nation. It's outside my lane.
I would say that it's about time that we ratified our participation in UNCLOS, especially with what is going on with, as I mentioned, Russia and China's activities. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Senator Scott.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. Admiral, you got the right background. You're going to do an outstanding job. And I want to thank you for your years of service, and I want to thank your family for their sacrifice and their commitment to you. I think you're going to be doing an outstanding job. You are doing a fixer-upper. You got a lot of work to do. As a enlisted guy that joined after high school, I hope you remember all those young men and women that come right out of high school and have real core beliefs in our military and the opportunity they have, and hope you'll treat them with respect and help them give the opportunities that I had when I was in the Navy.
Yes, sir.
So I've been up here 6.5 years. The federal government, in my opinion, has had unbelievable lack of accountability. I'll just give you one at the Navy. The new destroyer, the DDG-125, was commissioned in October 2023, and yet it can't be deployed until at least 2028 because it has a radar that needs to be tested. It didn't seem to make much sense. So why, do you have any idea why the Navy would build a ship and not test the radar on the ship before commissioning it?
Senator, I share your frustration with that trend. I've seen it far too often. We're in the shipyard for years. We come out and immediately have to go across the pier and get into a modernization period to actually go get modernized before I actually deliver. I want to work very closely, if I'm confirmed, with our program offices on fixing that. The integration of all the systems, the timely delivery of all that, and the turnkey ability for that ship, once it's ready to be handed over to me, needs to tighten up. And if I'm confirmed, I'll work hard to try to assuage the problem that you've just described with the Lucas.
So do you think that that you will have the authority to hold people accountable, both the people in the military, the people, the civilian workforce, and the our suppliers? Because it seems like it's all three. We haven't held our military leaders accountable, the people that work, the civilians, or these suppliers. Give me a break. If I'm a business guy, if this still happened to me, somebody would not be there. I'd say, you're really nice, but you're not going to work here.
Senators, you and I discussed in our office call, the holding of military program managers accountable, I've struggled with in my career. We have a very clear mechanism for operational commanders. It's not so clear with program managers. These are complex programs, multi-billion-dollar programs. I know the Secretary of the Navy and I have discussed better ways to actually ensure outcomes are happening in our programs and accountability and measuring the performance of people better that do that type of work. On the industry side, it goes to my opening a bit about sole source. When I find myself in monopolistic type of environments, the contracting strategy that I can get to utilize to do any type of accountability and incentives is challenging, but it's not insurmountable, and I do think we need to improve there, sir.
Yeah. Well, in business, my goal was don't deal with monopolists. I remember somebody told me I had to do business with them. I said, well, if I do, I will, but I figured out how not to do business with them. And so I saw them about 6 months later, and he told his wife he's why we didn't make our numbers last quarter, because we moved so much business. So if at the end of your time in this role, what will be you'll say I succeeded or failed? What's your true north?
Well, I think you would see a Navy that's got a ship count that's climbing commensurate with a 4-year assignment, where we're on pace with the delivery, meeting the contractual delivery dates and not over by 1 or 2 years as we currently experience. You'd see the gaps at sea on our ships have gone to zero. You see the munition floor requirements that we have completely met. So you can't win a war without munitions. You'd see the backlog of supply parts that we use typically as a bill payer frequently at the end of year, re-zeroed out so the lockers on board our ships are filled with the repair parts they need, and that the world-class training that our sailors deserve is just firing on all cylinders. So if I can accomplish those things at the end of this assignment, if I'm confirmed, I'd be pretty happy.
You're going to do a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
We would be exceedingly happy. Senator Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Admiral Caudle, good to see you again. And Senator Scott talked about at the beginning about just please respect the sailors. And I just want to share with my colleagues, Admiral Caudle and I have worked pretty closely together on a very thorny problem, which is we had 2 clusters of suicides among sailors in Hampton Roads. A number of sailors connected with this long refueling of the GW where they were, in dock in a kind of a pointless waiting for Godot situation. And then also a number of sailors who were assigned to limited duty status at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Maintenance Center. And I just want to share with my colleagues, along with everything else he was doing to make sure we could win battles, and I'm going to ask about that in a second, Admiral Caudle really, really took this very seriously and made a number of changes in both of these units and more generally throughout the Navy that I think demonstrates a real focus on the success of each individual sailor. And I just want to thank you for that, Admiral Caudle. With respect to winning battles, I don't think you've gotten enough credit. I don't think the Navy has gotten enough credit for the work in the Red Sea, and I know my colleague, Senator King, just brought that up. We've been getting a lot of briefings about the work in the Red Sea against the Houthis, keeping shipping lanes open for global commerce, et cetera. A lot of those briefings have been in classified settings, and I'm not sure the public has fully understood the degree of danger that the Navy has been under, the daily assaults and attacks that the Navy has been under, and that essentially, you've kind of been 1,000% during this. Talk a little bit about the success of the Navy in these operations and lessons learned going forward.
Well, Senator, thanks for all the time you afford me and our partnership in Hampton Roads area. It's crucial, as you know, that industrial base there and what it brings to Virginia. So thank you for that. And thank you for the acknowledgement of the sailors and strike groups and destroyers and submarines that have been part of those operations. Let me just highlight real quick just the importance of the heroes on board these ships. And those are the real weapon system. It's the sailors on board. Their training, you can go watch any of these crews that are in these combat centers and the way they are mining their panels in a very complex environment and defending the carrier strike group so it can conduct its operations. The rate of learning and the turnaround between when we get an engagement data set back to the community of practice, which is our Warfare Development Center, the team at Dahlgren, the surface commander in the Atlantic, to digest that, to make sure the shot doctrine, the weapon selection, the algorithm used by the Aegis combat system is perfectly tuned and made adaptations in real time was world class on that. And then finally, just the evolution of actually attacking each attack with the right munitions. So using more air-to-air assets, which are cheaper than an SM-6 or an SM-2, and using electronic warfare to do that when possible. And so that learning curve has been great there. And then the spectrum of care we've given those warriors who have operated in that engagement zone starts in the Red Sea. On the transit back, we give them a hero's welcome when they return to the pier, and we continue to follow up with them afterwards to make sure they get the care they need.
I really appreciate you sharing that. We've been very aware of the learning that we are all doing based on watching evolution of the battlefield in Ukraine, but this battlefield in the Red Sea, where the Navy has performed so well, has created a lot of evolution of practice in ways that we can bear fruit going forward. My colleagues have heard me talk about this during the NDA markup, but I want to just raise it again. By including defense spending in the reconciliation bill, we had some strange issues arise as we assessed the Pentagon's budget request. The example was the Pentagon made assumptions about how much money the reconciliation bill would have for Virginia-class subs, but that turned out to be off by $2 billion. We fixed a significant portion of that deficit. The chairman was key to that. There still remains a gap. So I'm concerned that there could be a cascading effect over the next several years, But one thing that could help give us some clarity on the issue going forward would be timely delivery of a 30-year shipbuilding plan. Should you be confirmed, do you commit to timely delivery of the 30-year shipbuilding plan with the President's budget request so that we can make sure we're aligning our needs with our resource allocation?
Senator, I commit to that. I will work diligently with the Secretary of the Navy to deliver that on time.
Last question I'll ask is this. I am a big supporter of AUKUS. What's your assessment of AUKUS's progress and what might Congress do to help keep it on track?
Well, Senator, for everyone, there is no question that Australia fields incredible submariners. They have served on board U.S. submarines and with me personally for decades. I'm personal friends with the Chief of Staff of the Navy there, Mark Hammond, and he and I are good friends for a long time. So the question of Australia's ability to conduct undersea warfare is not in question by me, I think, or anyone. But as you know, the delivery pace is not where it needs to be to make good on the Pillar 1 of the AUKUS agreement, which is currently under review by our Defense Department. So I think rightly so, we do have to understand whether or not the industrial base can produce the submarines required so that we can make good on the actual pact that we've made with the UK and Australia, which is around 2.2 to 2.3 Virginia-class submarines per year. That's going to require a transformational improvement, not a 10% improvement, not a 20%, a 100% improvement.
We need to do that, though, don't we, Admiral?
To improve?
But we need that transformational improvement, do we not?
Absolutely, Chairman. Absolutely. We need a transformational improvement and the ability to deliver twice the capacity that we're currently delivering.
So if I can follow in on what the Senator has asked, we need to quickly and resolutely get to where we need to be to fulfill our Pillar 1 obligations and move on to Pillar 2. Is that your assessment?
Well, yes, Chairman. My assessment would be Pillar 2 we need to have that on on steroids already. It's the technology transfers and the things we're doing with artificial intelligence and cyber and undersea unmanned vehicles, all those types of things that we can collaborate with our great partners in the United Kingdom and Australia needs to be working in parallel. But in parallel, we need to transformationally improve the output of the 2 yards that are producing our Virginia-class submarines. There needs to be some creativity, some ingenuity, some outsourcing improvements, stop the attrition levels that are currently there today at those 2 yards. And so we need an all-hands-on-deck approach to this to get to the 2.3 submarines per year.
Do you commit to doing that?
I do. I want to work closely with both of those companies and our program offices and the Secretary of the Navy and your committee and the entire congressional team to actually improve production.
Well, I'm glad Senator Kane raised this. And it was obvious that it needed to be raised, but I'm glad we were able to nail that down in this hearing. So thank you, Senator Kane. Senator Budd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, it's great to see you. I enjoyed our conversation a week or so ago. It's great to see a North Carolinian here, even so much. We got a great 100 counties, but I think we even share roots in Forsyth County. So it's great to see you, and congrats on your nomination. Glad to see your family and supporters here as well. You've said, Admiral, that many other Navy leaders have talked about rebuilding and boosting production of our Navy fleet. It's a decade-plus endeavor. And my concern is that our adversaries, they're not going to wait for that decade. They're going to try to outpace us. And I'm also concerned that the next conflict's not going to look like what we're building towards. It might include it, but it's also more than that. So, Admiral, what steps will you take to invest in unmanned systems, whether that's aerial, surface, underwater, and how do you see them used for projecting power?
Well, Senator, thanks, and it's great to have a North Carolinian here with me, and I appreciate the time we got to spend in our office call. There is no question that unmanned robotic autonomous systems will be part of any modern warfare going forward. The learning that we've had from the Russia-Ukraine, we see it in spades, we see it from the Israel conflicts. We're all learning from this. Everyone is, including our adversaries. So we have to pace that. So there has to be robust investments in robotic autonomous unmanned systems. There has to be good, clean command and control. There has to be good concepts of operations. There has to be good ideas on how we're going to deliver those capabilities so they're not just PowerPoint deep. There's got to be good sustainment. And if we're going to make things actually call them attritable, they really need to be attritable. It's not in our nature in the Navy to really treat things attritable. And so we can spend money that maybe is not necessary to in that area where we need to just be able to get a paradigm shift on how we treat those. But I completely agree with you, and if confirmed, you have my commitment that this idea of a hybrid fleet will be part of my vision for the future of the Navy.
Thank you, Admiral. You know, that was a question about how we play offense, but let's talk about how we play defense as well. So what would you do to protect our naval installations and assets from unmanned threats? And how would you work across the federal agencies to make sure that we don't have a modern-day Pearl Harbor with drone swarm or any other types of modern attacks?
Well, Senator, my current position at Fleet Forces, I'm also the Naval Component Commander to NORTHCOM. So it's my responsibility for force protection of all CONUS bases. And so this idea of having good counter unmanned aerial systems at our installations is extremely important to me. It's something I've worked very closely with General Guillot, the NORTHCOM commander, on. You know, it really got highlighted with the UAVs that were seen around Langley and around Earl, New Jersey, kind of put this on the map. But it's something we've been watching for several years, understanding we're not well equipped at all of our bases to handle that threat. So this ties to, you know, Section 130I authorities for covered bases and assets to make sure all bases have those authorities. These are best of breed practices as joint solutions. Some of my sister services have better solutions than the Navy. I need to learn from that and field some of those capabilities. But at the heart of that, sir, is good common operational picture so the base commander can see the environment and a range of ways to actually approach countering attacks that they may encounter from UAVs. And that has to be non-lethal and lethal effects.
Thank you. So if confirmed, Admiral, how would you direct the Navy's acquisition system, if it's buying systems like you just talked about or anything else you have in mind or that we need, how would you do that to cut red tape, streamline contracting, and speed up delivery of these critical systems? I know we've talked about that, but drill down, if you would, to the first 90 days, how you'd want to get after this.
Well, I need to get smarter on the impediments that currently exist in law. You know, as an operational commander for most of my career, I've been, I'll call it somewhat of a victim of it and not necessarily a person that's, you know, been able to, you know, take charge on it. But now I find myself, if confirmed, being in a position to do that. I know there's a lot of red tape. I know there's a lot of antiquated laws. I know there's a lot of acquisition process that needs to be streamlined. I know there's authorities that need to be pushed down with better delegation, commercial solution offerings and agreements that we need to leverage to actually get these capabilities faster and more effectively to our warfighters. And then a quick ability to actually test, field, experiment, and get this out in the actual deployment cycle so we're actually getting the entire Navy's hands-on approach to actually operating these systems more effectively.
Thank you. Any thoughts on working with international partners for maintenance and repair for our Navy fleet?
Senator, I think this is the state of our maintenance and shipbuilding and other areas of the like is a 100% all hands on deck. So I would be remiss if I didn't consider partners that want to help me until I get my ship industrial base in the United States, along with the Department of Defense and the interagency, this is a whole of government approach, up on step. So I do agree that allies and partners can be crucial in helping us in this interim time while we're working to get our industrial capacity in the United States to the place it needs to be.
Thank you, Admiral.
Admiral, as you drill down on obstacles that may exist in law, do you think that you will be led to a number of the Forged Act provisions that exist in this committee's NDAA?
Well, Chairman, you know, looking at the Forged Act from where I sit now, and I'm not deep in it, but I wholeheartedly agree that we need to streamline and make more efficient the acquisition process. We need better commercial solutions. We need better authorities, again, as I mentioned, to push that down to a level to where decisions and the right dollar amount is tied with that decision delegation. We need to actually improve the efficiencies, that we're not drowning under the paperwork of getting these types of capabilities. The devil's are in a bit in the details, though, as you and I talked about. I don't want, I do have Title 10 authorities, and so does the Secretary of the Navy. So anytime you try to short circuit, and make things quicker, I just want to make sure that the equities and the requirements that I'm required to have to ensure these capabilities that I can organize, train, and equip sailors to operate and sustain them is not short-circuited. So if that's the case, then yes, I'm very much behind it, sir.
Well, and it happens that we will not be able to put our NDAA on the floor next week, in all likelihood. So you got 4 weeks to really drill down on some obstacles that we might be able to remove for you as we go to the floor. So thank you very much on that. Senator Reed, you are back in the room, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome again, Admiral. The Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Smith, indicated that the need for 3 Marine Expert Units, MEUs, is actually his North Star, as he called it, essential to the Marine Corps. And in the fiscal year 23 NDAA, Congress amended Title 10 to require that the Navy maintain 31 amphibious ships. But with maintenance backlogs and other issues, we are now only able to deploy 1 MEU and sometimes 2 MEUs. Do you agree with the Commandant that we need 3 MEUs, and what must we do to get them?
Ranking Member Reed, General Smith and I are partners. We're good friends personally. I do understand what he views as a requirement to deliver 3 ARG MEUs. The last time we were able to do that was in the 90s. It took a force structure of 37 to 40 amphibious ships to do that. I am committed to making sure that I comply with the law with 31 amphib ships. So I just want to make sure that's clear. So 31 is with our model that we currently have, even if the maintenance challenges that I can discuss with our amphib readiness were not in play, a 3.0 ARG MEU presence would not be capable with a 31 ship force structure, with a 4 to 5 to make 100% of the time. So I do look at that as a goal. And I'm committed to working with him to deliver the most combat power that force can deliver while I'm getting the readiness of those units improved, which it desperately needs, which means adopting a lot of the best practices that we do with other ships that, quite frankly, we've not applied to the amphibious force until late.
Well, thank you, sir. One of the great challenges before us, particularly in the Indo-PACOM area, is contested logistics. We've been operating, frankly, since World War II with air superiority and the ability to move supplies anywhere we want. We won't have that if there's a conflict in the Pacific. And as Napoleon reminded us, an army moves on its stomach, and I think the Navy moves a little bit on its stomach also. What capabilities will you need, and what can you do to ensure that we can get the ammo and the support we need to our troops?
Well, Senator, this is one of the, if not one of the most complex problems that the Indo-Pacific Commander has and the PAC Fleet Commander has, is to rearm, resupply, repair, replenish our units that are conducting high-end warfare in a very contested environment. A lot of energy and focus and experimentation and wargaming has gone to this. Command structures are being built to actually command and control it effectively. But at the heart of it is going to have to take a healthy combat logistics force. Okay, so I've got work to do there, if confirmed as CNO, to deliver the combat logistics force that the Pacific Force Commander needs. Everyone is subject to targeting in a theater, and so all the efforts that we're doing for counter-targeting to make our units resilient so that they are not under a target, being examined as a target, it's got to be part of that. A moving target is hard to hit, so all the technologies that we're doing to be able to do things while underway improves resiliency and making us be able to actually do those things we talked about. The allies and partnerships that we're going to need for access, basing, and overflight are going to be crucial to this as well. So there's got to be a full spectrum approach to ensuring we're able to do this, sir, and I'm committed to that if confirmed.
Well, thank you very much, Admiral. I think one of the areas, too, is that we do not have a very robust merchant marine fleet, and we're either going to have to borrow it or somehow find it. And that is another one of, I think, the issues you must confront. Just quickly, a comment. Cyber, we're having a difficult time in every service to both train effective cyber operators and, more importantly, retain them. And I hope that's something that you will look into very closely and see if we can enhance both the training and the retention of these personnel.
Well, Ranking Member Reed, cyber is an incredibly aspect of modern warfare. It's an incredible part of our own warfare structure and our ability to defend, conduct offensive operations, exploitation operations. These are critical skills. The teams that we build for U.S. Cyber Command, the Navy has not filled all the requirement. We have definitely improved. We've created ratings, like our MOS is essentially for the Navy, and designators for officers to improve that. But the attrition of those forces, because they're so highly trained, are in high demand from everyone. And so there's a model there that I need to understand better to make sure that I can actually pull this off, working with the Joint Force to make sure that we can deliver what we need as a service in this critical domain. And I'm committed, if confirmed, to doing that, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Reed. Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, first of all, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you to your family for their sacrifice as well. Let's talk spectrum. We did in my office. I want to get it on the record. This committee would be disappointed if I didn't follow this line at some point. I've heard from over 30 senior DoD officials in hearings over the last 2 years, including every service chief and 8 combatant commanders, that vacating the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz band of spectrum would have a significantly negative consequence for our warfighting capabilities. In fact, the Department of the Navy previously estimated that relocating your systems to a different spectrum band would cost them $250 billion. Both the Navy and the Marine Corps intend to make extensive use of capabilities which require the electromagnetic spectrum to function in the Western Pacific against China. Admiral, does the Navy have capabilities operating on the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz band and the 7 and 8 gigahertz bands of spectrum, which would be used in a conflict with China?
Senator Rounds, thank you for this and for championing this for our time in the office. I appreciate you hammering it because it is so vital. All of my critical weapon systems, electronic warfare systems, communication systems, everything that I do pretty much to conduct high-end warfare operates in these bands. Asking me to maneuver outside of that, I'm not sure how we came up with the number 260. I would have probably given you infinity. And so it's just really, this is a 100-year project to go to retune the Navy's combat system to move outside that band. So I would implore anyone that's thinking about doing that to not do that and allow the Navy to actually operate in the bands you described, Senator.
Thank you, sir. And I think the other question that I would ask is some people think that there's an easy way to simply just share the bands with commercial operations. Would you care to comment on that, sir?
Well, Senator, what I found, and this is from my experience in my current role as U.S. Fleet Forces, is there are strict rules that the FAA and the FCC and others actually have in the sharing. And just with our certification events, Comp 2X we call it, composite training exercise to certify our strike groups for deployment, requires careful navigation in these frequency bands just to get the authority to do our training. So if I get constrained further to do that, I just think it'd have detrimental effects to our Navy, our ability to deliver combat-ready forces.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we discussed in my office the likelihood of being engaged with multiple adversaries in multiple theaters at some point in the future. Most observers assess that our adversaries will seek to press their advantage in the event we are committed in another area, particularly given the increasingly close coordination between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. How can the Navy be better postured to maintain deterrence in multiple theaters?
Well, Senator, let me just say first, we've only had regional conflicts since World War II because we have a nuclear deterrent. So there can be no chinks in that. So we want to make sure that if there is a conflict, that it doesn't go global. So we must continue to fund all legs of the strategic triad. That just goes without saying. The second part is we need the Navy the nation needs from the amount and capacity so that the presence and posture into the critical areas to squelch any opportunism is put at bay right away. We're not going to be able to do that alone, Senator. That's going to have to be with allies and partners. Partnerships and making sure NATO carries their weight, making sure partners in the Western Pacific carry their weight and are with us on this to give us the actual capacity we need if we're going to actually confront two peers. And so I think the partnerships are crucial to that as well.
Thank you, sir. Admiral, the Navy's shipbuilding plans and the SIOP call for long-term investments to modernize fleet and sustain undersea deterrence. We've talked a lot about that already today. Let me ask you just a question. It's about time we start talking about how we fix the existing stuff we've got out there. Since 2017, I've asked about the USS Boise as an example. Los Angeles class attack submarine. It's now been out of service, not even able to dive, I believe, since 2017 or 2018. Over 9, almost 10 years now, at least in that neighborhood, being out of service, setting in dock, waiting for its half-life to be completed. Is it time we just simply pull the plug on that one and start looking at other stuff?
Well, Senator, you know, it's like a dagger in my heart as a submarine officer when you bring up Boise to me because it's an unacceptable story. But it's a story of where we walked away from a private capacity, our private yard's capacity to do in-service repair decades ago. And as a relief valve to an oversubscribed public yard, we decided to induct 3 ships into Huntington Ingalls and a couple in the last several years into electric boat. Because of the lack of investment in those areas, because we did walk away from that, I think both of those yards had some learning to do before they were able to get up on the step. And that learning has not been quick and it's not been effective. And without a clear demand signal of what unit's coming after Boise, I worry that effort won't be applied to Boise to get her completed. So working with the Secretary of the Navy, I want to take that on if I'm confirmed and look at that hard. The decision whether or not to actually walk away from Boise is a big one, and I want to make sure I clearly understand the trajectory and trends, but I hear you loud and clear, Senator, on how unacceptable it is, how long she's been in the yards.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Senator Rounds. And Admiral, let's continue to have a dialogue about that so we can move to a decision. Senator Warren, I understand you are next, and you are willing to trade spaces with Senator Peters. Is that correct? Senator Peters, you are recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Warren, for that as well. Thank you. Admiral Caudle, Admiral Caudle, thank you for your service to our nation, and certainly congratulations on your nomination. As we discussed during our meeting last week in my office, Constellation-class frigates will have versatile mission capabilities to conduct a variety of operations, including air, surface, and anti-submarine warfare. These frigates will be a key part of the U.S. Navy's surface fleet and support your critical missions in the Indo-Pacific as well as beyond. I'm proud that Michigan workers who aid these key missions make up about 40% of the workforce building Constellation-class frigates. So my question for you, sir, is what current capabilities gap will be filled by the Constellation-class frigates? And secondly, what additional missions are going to be enabled by these frigates in the Indo-Pacific in a potential future conflict?
Well, Senator, thanks for the time we got to spend together, and thank you for the workers from Michigan. We need them. And I appreciate their efforts on these critical roles for the Navy. The frigate plays an important role. It fills a gap that allows me not to have to have destroyers conduct these operations where the frigate is more suited to conduct. They historically have been world-class at undersea warfare. They're submarine hunters. And so that's really the design of that, is to have exquisite variable depth sonar and capabilities to actually detect submarines and to do that mission most specifically. But they also will have a great radar system, a combat system, and can actually be more vertical launch cells to add mass and effects to get after the very question that Senator Rounds asked about the actual capacity I need for multi-front conflicts going forward. So they add mass to the Navy in a very important way. So the small combat ship, the frigate, is a vital role in the capability it brings.
Well, wonderful. Admiral, the Virginia-class and Columbia-class submarines will be the cornerstone, as you well know, of our nation's deterrent efforts in the Indo-Pacific. In recognition of their importance, since 2018, Congress has appropriated $9 billion to bolster the submarine industrial base. As we'd also discussed in our office, and I appreciate that conversation, the Navy continues to invest these funds. They also need to look beyond kind of the traditional areas that are close to shipyards in order to accelerate the manufacturing process and bring in a wide range of talent that exists all around the country. You know, for example, Michigan stands ready to support the Navy's efforts. We have very unique commercial automotive, aerospace, as well as exquisite advanced manufacturing expertise. So my question for you is, if confirmed, how are you going to harness the nationwide talent in places like Michigan and other places around the country that have this specialized talent that haven't been tapped in the past and yet can do incredible work as we build these new submarines?
Well, Senator, your question is it's so on point. My experience with shipyards is the recruiting radius and who we bring into these yards is generally close to the yard itself. And unlike other sectors like my daughters are in, who recruit nationally for like a company would do, we tend to have a very localized approach. And so I think we need to open up the spigot a bit to a campaign plan that buildsubmarines.com, I think a lot of you have probably seen that, is where that's heading, is to get more folks educated and understanding that they can be part of serving their country at our major yards. So that's got to continue, and I think there's more that can be done there. There's more outsourcing opportunity that we need to do even for our Virginia class. The modular approach of how those ships are built with the floating decks and how they can be just better outsourced to different vendors like we're doing in Austal Shipbuilding is one example of that. I think there can be more room for some of those ventures as well. So we have got to fundamentally, as we've talked about, improve and increase the capacity. It cannot be business as usual. So this has got to be a country level effect. And so, I guess I would end the thing is, and I heard this quote recently, and it's probably as good a time to say it as ever, about additional shipyards. And the quote goes, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant it is today. So whatever solution we have on going forward, if a new yard is what we need, if I start today, then in 10 years, it'll be firing up on all cylinders. So I think that has to be on the table. And because I am worried that we just don't have the capacity with just efficiency increases alone to deliver the 2.3 that's needed by our nation.
Thank you, Admiral. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's do it. Senator Cotton.
Admiral, welcome, congratulations, and thank you for your service, and thanks to your family for their services and sacrifices as well. As we discussed in our meeting, the United States is in a munitions crisis. We need more munitions of all kinds faster. Do you believe the Navy needs to increase the number of missiles and other kinds of munitions it buys in order to effectively deter and, if necessary, hopefully not, fight and win a war in the Pacific?
Yes, Senator. Wars are won with munitions.
I certainly agree. To do that, would you say that we need to take an all-of-the-above approach of leveraging our organic industrial base as well as private industry to produce the munitions our warfighters need?
Yes, sir.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. What steps will you take, if confirmed, to CNO to ensure the Navy does, in fact, get those munitions that it needs?
Well, Senator, I think this is, first, thank you for our time together and some of the conversations we had on this topic. This is no question an all-hands approach. It's really easy, I think, to finger point in this world of constraint and oversubscription and underperformance. So I'd like to break down that and really get to the brass tacks and really get a clear mapping of each of the munition lines in my head and with my team to understand where the critical stoppage points are on the flow of these munitions, where the waste steps are, where the sole source vendors are that are behind, and actually approach this from just a common sense way of thinking about unleashing the the log jam of places where we're turning these munitions at pace and meet our contractual deliveries on time. It will not do any good with the money that you would like to budget for me if I can't translate into the actual delivery. So I need to work with the partners, make sure the Navy's clean on the way we do qualification and validation and certification steps. And I'm doing my role along with the industrial base to deliver these critical munitions, sir.
Thank you. We've heard a lot of talk this morning about shipbuilding. You've spoken extensively already about the need to increase the readiness of our naval fleet. Of course, readiness depends on having ships that are prepared to be at sea, and shipbuilding is only as good as our maintenance plan is for those ships once they're at sea. What can we do to address the maintenance backlog that the Navy faces today and get those ships out of dry dock and back into sea faster?
Well, Senator, that's a massive venture that I want to spend, if confirmed, my heart and soul in to get turned around. But there are some things I can give you that all shipyards need to adhere to. And that's giving the shipyard a clear demand signal for when the unit is coming in for the maintenance period. So that's a maintenance plan. And that planning needs to be stood off with sufficient time that the yard knows it's coming, has the funding and the workforce ready with a clear signal and a stable workforce. Long lead time material. We want the actual parts in the hand of the worker when it's ready to be assembled. And so the technical work documentation is part of that as well. And so so the planning time horizon, the location of where the actual maintenance is going to take place, the readiness to start day one, solid project management, and workforce development and skills are all part of all solutions into your questions.
Okay, thank you. Final question. I think China poses the most severe long-term threat to our nation, and that is a primarily maritime domain, not exclusively, but primarily. At the same time, the Navy has to be ready and postured to face threats around the world. The Navy was part of the outstanding Operation Midnight Hammer that devastated Iran's nuclear programs, also led the way in the fight against the Houthi rebels in Yemen earlier this year. What do you see as the biggest challenges the Navy faces to being prepared, not just to deter the China threat, but also to ensure American leadership around the world on the seas?
Well, Senator, I think overall the biggest challenge is a capacity problem. And so that makes us have to think. So when you don't have enough stuff, you really got to put your brain to your schemes of maneuver, your ability to counter targeting, counter ISR, to actually have synchronization. There's an old saying that precision beats power and timing beats speed every time. So we have to bring those types of thinking in. But at the end of the day, mass will matter. It will. And so that's why I need the munitions, I need the ships, and I need to posture them correctly with great intelligence sources to know when and where to do that best. And I do want to thank you for calling out the Navy's role in the Midnight Hammer. I know our Air Force partners get a lot of the credit, but there were a lot of TLAMs that were shot by the Submarine Force in that as well. So I appreciate that, sir.
Yep, they all did a great job. Thank you.
Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations, Admiral Caudle, on your nomination. So for years, defense contractors have slipped fine print into contracts that limit the Department of Defense's ability to fix its own ships and fighter jets, MRI machines, radar systems. Last month, Secretary Phelan told this committee that he saw firsthand that sailors on the Gerald R. Ford carrier couldn't fix ovens or elevators themselves because they had to wait for contractors to come and do it. Now, the Government Accountability Office estimated that repair restrictions are costing the Navy billions of dollars and also costing the Navy opportunities to train sailors to repair their own equipment in the field. In peacetime, that is expensive and inconvenient. In the middle of a conflict, that actually puts our security at risk. So, Admiral Caudle, you have commanded sailors in the Pacific. If their equipment breaks in a war zone, is it a problem if contractors are not able or not willing to come to the front lines to be able to fix it?
Well, Senator Warren, let me just say thank you for championing this right to repair initiative. It's so vital. It's so ridiculous that sailors cannot actually enter a piece of equipment because of a contractual reason, a warranty violation. It goes right to the heart of what we call self-sufficiency. So I don't like it in peacetime, and I certainly do not want it in wartime. It's not sustainable. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% committed to understanding it more fully, I guess the language of the right to repair piece, but the idea of what you're describing, I am fully committed to, Senator.
That's right. And I really do want to hit the point as well that if sailors aren't getting a chance to repair this equipment in peacetime, you can't just say, okay, if war comes, you go ahead and repair it now, because they don't get the opportunities to learn it and kind of know how all the pieces work. Is that a fair statement?
Senator, it's 100% fair. It ties to how we build our schoolhouses. So the curriculum will change when I have the right to repair equipment that I'm not currently repairing.
Yeah.
So it has these kind of second and third order effects as well.
Well, I really appreciate your enthusiasm for making a change in this area. The Army has said that it will require contractors to provide the technical data and diagnostic tools necessary for the Army to be able to maintain weapon systems itself. Makes us more resilient, enhances competition, grows the industrial base, helps with the training of our people. I worked with Senator Sheehy and the members of this committee to secure a provision in the NDAA that you just referred to that will provide a right to repair for all of the services, and the House bill now includes similar language. Why are we still talking about this? Well, because the lobbyists for the defense industry are now pushing back. They like being able to get restrictions on your ability to repair, because it means that they can not only charge you the initial price to sell you the piece of equipment, but they also can charge pretty much whatever they want, if they have a monopoly on this, to charge you for all of the repairs and maintenance down the line. So, Admiral Caudle, as a commander, what difference will it make to the warfighter for the Navy to have broad authority to secure the rights necessary to keep our fighter jets flying and our ships sailing wherever we need to keep Americans safe?
Well, Senator, it's vital. There should be nothing on board a ship that a sailor cannot repair. It's just said that simply. And that's how we make sure that we're ready to fight. Things break all the time on our ships, and to keep them going, sustained. And that's why this is just not just a wartime. We need these equipments. I mean, it's dangerous where we operate now, even in peace. They're not there just sailing around. We're actually acting as a deterrent. We're a vital part of that, at the ready. And so when a piece of equipment's down and our readiness is not 100%, and it's because I can't repair it, then that's unacceptable in my mind.
Yeah, well, I very much appreciate that. Thank you, and appreciate your statements here, and look forward to working with you on this. I also want to say I appreciate the qualifications you bring to this role, but we have to acknowledge the circumstances surrounding your nomination. Admiral Franchetti, the first woman to serve as Chief of Naval Operations, was removed by the President without any explanation. That's not on you. But we need the best and the brightest in this country to serve in the military, and we aren't going to be able to compete with China or anyone else if women know that their talents and hard work are going to be tossed aside. Everyone in this room needs to take a hard look at what's happening at the Pentagon right now. Firing good people who do their jobs does not make us safer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, good to see you again, sir, and thanks for your visit in my office last week. I really enjoyed our discussion, and I appreciate your service, your family's service, all the Navy team that you're part of, so thank you to everybody here. I want to follow up on the Senator Reid discussion on 31 amphibs and the 3.0 MU. I think it's an area where there's a little bit of a disconnect in this year's NDAA. We have conference report that tasks the Department of Defense, Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, to work with you and the Marines on defining that requirement in the amphibs that we talked about. You know, the law is 31 amphibs. I was very involved in writing that. The language about temporarily unavailable, I think the acting CNO in his testimony here a couple weeks ago stretched that definition really, really far. We're tightening that definition up in the NDAA this year to make sure you can't have a temporarily unavailable ship that's been in dry dock for 14 years to qualify as one of the 31 amphibs. So you and I had a good discussion on that. Could you give me a little bit more of your thinking? I know you just talked about it with Senator Reed, but the combatant command demand signal on the Muse is very high. We want the Marines to be out there deployed, forward deployed, as a really important force projection capability of the United States. Can't do it without the amphibs, but we need time to get to a higher number. You and I talked about that. What are your thoughts on that, Admiral?
Well, Senator Sullivan, thank you for a couple of sessions we've got to have together. Sir, I've enjoyed our time. The 31, I just want to state for the record here that that's the law, and I will comply with that, no question. And I am also committed to delivering the most combat power with my good friend Eric Smith that 31 will deliver. And we have had challenges in our amphibious readiness. I've been part of the comprehensive review of that with Admiral McLean, who's our Surface Force Commander. There's a lot of things that are in that report that we need to do to get that amphibious fleet healthy, and I'm committed to that as well. Most of that deals with maintenance and part support, and there's a bit of expertise that I need to improve on as well. So to the 3.0 part about that, I consider that to be a commitment that I have with Eric Smith. I can't deliver that today with the readiness that I have. That's his requirement that he needs to build his force structure assumptions, and so I recognize that. And he and I have talked about that, and going forward, it's my goal to actually put the effort and energy in to deliver the most our amphibious force can do. It's an important role, and I'm committed to it if confirmed, sir.
Great. Thank you on that. A couple weeks ago, the SecDef was testifying here. He had received an inspired question by our chairman about the Department of Defense meeting congressional intent when it comes to spending, particularly on the $150 billion in budget reconciliation, where this committee very much focused on a lot of things relating to the Navy, a massive $29 billion expenditure for shipbuilding and the maritime industrial base. We also provided the Navy billions in other expenditures, munitions. We've talked about support infrastructure upgrades, including in places like the Arctic and North Pacific. By the way, I showed you that chart in my office, Russian and Chinese incursions in the North Pacific and the Arctic. We got to update that chart. Last night, the Russians were again in the Alaska ADIZ. Our military did a great job of intercepting them. But will you commit, like the Secretary of Defense did, to fully understand the congressional intent behind these budget reconciliation expenditures for the Navy and following our congressional intent on the spending of the very significant funds that we just passed in the Congress?
Senator, I not only commit to it, but if confirmed, I will advocate that it's spent in that way.
Right. Thank you. Finally, back to shipbuilding. Again, want to compliment the chairman here on his leadership. CRS put out a report, Congressional Research Service, called the Navy's in the biggest shipbuilding crisis, building, maintaining, and manning ships in almost a half a century. That will be a huge priority of yours, I know. The fleet this year with regard to China is surpassing 400 ships. That's 120 ships bigger than our fleet. I recently saw the 1984 through 1988 Reagan 600 ship buildup. I'd like to submit this for the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
It's remarkable what our country did with a much smaller workforce, a much smaller economy, to get to essentially 600 ship Navy. It's amazing. 124 new construction ships, new ships completed from 1984 to 88. Can you just give us again, I know we focus on a lot today, it's so important, what you think the shipyard of the future looks like? One of the provisions in the NDAA that I got in this year talked about the Navy looking at West Coast shipyard and the need for that. I know a lot of leadership in the Navy thinks we need that. Quick answer on that, the shipyard of the future and what that might look like to catch up and get out of this crisis, catch up with the Chinese, but get out of this crisis that we're in right now.
We may want to give a brief answer and supplement that on the record.
Okay. Well, I can tell you it's going to take a world-class workforce, one that's not attriting in double digits. It's going to take more robotic autonomous systems to get their production and quality done on time. It's going to take more competition, so less single-source vendors. And it's going to just take an all-hands-on-deck approach to the project management, the actual workforce management that you referenced back in the 80s was able to do it. So why can't I do it today? That turns into people. That's a people problem. And I need to get my hands around that so we're actually delivering these on time, sir.
Thank you, Admiral. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, congratulations on your nomination for this very important role. As you know, the Navy, I spent 25 years in the Navy, very important to me. We've got a great Navy. There's always opportunities to improve it. I want to follow up on Senator Sullivan's questions about shipyards, but also from the angle of our merchant fleet and our ability to move combat power across the ocean, especially the Pacific Ocean. The Chinese can build about 1,200, I think between 2020 and 2022, about 1,200 commercial ships. In that time period, we built 6. So 1,200 versus 6. And the reason I bring this up is obviously we have a military sea lift command that can move weapons and people, and we have pre-positioned ships in Diego Garcia and other places around the world. But that helps a lot at the beginning of a conflict. And we're better than any other country in contested logistics in general. But when you get further into a conflict with some attrition, we could find ourselves in a very challenging spot, and I'm very, very concerned about this. I've introduced, along with Senator Young and some colleagues in the House, a bipartisan bicameral bill called the Ships for America Act to rebuild our commercial shipbuilding and our entire maritime industry, including the workforce, which is also a challenge. Right now, just to man merchant ships that we have, the 80 ocean-going merchant vessels in international trade, we are sometimes at a loss for finding crews. So, Admiral, if confirmed, what steps will you take to ensure that our industrial shipbuilding base is ready for competition and crisis and conflict?
Well, Senator, thanks for that. I think and for championing this, quite frankly, it's an important issue. Our combat logistics force, our oilers and TAKEs and pretty much all of our ships with a T at the beginning, we're not in a good place. And predominantly that comes from a couple of challenges that we face. Challenges with having the right number of masters, first mates, chief engineers, and some of the able-bodied seamen as well. So we have a crewing problem that we're addressing. And so we're after that. A campaign plan, working with legislative propositions on making sure compensation is adequate, leave accrual, rotation in a timely manner, so we're not holding those mariners on station without knowing where the relief is coming from. We're working all that. We do have some delivery of our new class problems. We get the ships late, and when we do, sometimes they require additional work before we can put them in the field. So that's something we need to work on as well. I think all the Shipbuilding Act and all the emphasis that the administration, Department of Defense is putting on that will be a tide that raises all boats, if you will. It's going to help me with my civilian mariner problem. The MARAD problem of accountability after a degree and me getting my fair share of those mariners is something I'm also working on. And so it's a lot to your question, but if I'm confirmed, sir, you have my commitment, I will work and focus on it.
Yeah, I'm a graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. 1986, left there with a third assistant and a third mate's license, third assistant engineer.
and we graduate, and the Merchant Marine Academy puts out more mariners that actually go to sea than I think the state schools combined. And all these schools do a fine job educating mariners that we need for our national security. I was meeting with Sean Duffy, Secretary of Transportation, about this and some other things about a week ago, and one of the things he stressed was the infrastructure problem at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. And he's committed to work with me, and we're reviewing our legislation again to make sure that we have the necessary resources and to try to get the administration to get behind this. Because if we properly fund the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy and the state schools and provide the training vessels we need to educate this workforce, that will better position the United States Navy to have the mariners it needs to, man those oilers and supply ships and others. So thank you, Admiral, for your continued service to this nation.
Thank you, Senator.
Appreciate it.
Let me give a hearty bipartisan endorsement to Senator Kelly's remarks about the Merchant Marine Academy. Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've earned this. Looking forward to working with you. We talk about shipbuilding, and we do a lot of that in my state of Alabama. Now we're in the submarine business, but I was also in the education business. We're 500,000 electricians short in this country, and mine in your lifetime, we can't catch up. We're going to have to use our allies to help build some things. What's your thoughts about that? And, for instance, Korea, they build 5 to R1 keels. Are your thoughts on helping and working with our allies to help build ships in the future?
Well, Senator, thanks for meeting with me. I enjoyed our time in your office. I want to work with the Secretary of the Navy and the Department of Defense on looking at this hard. Again, I've said this is an all hands on deck. I don't know how we do what we need to do without bringing international partners into the capacity problem that we have while we build up our capacity, because we need ships today. And so there are no magic beans to that. There's nothing that's going to just make that happen. So the solution space has got to open up. And I think part of that has to look at international partnerships to give us a little bit of a relief valve while we work on our own organic industrial capacity.
Yeah, as you said, we need them yesterday. And again, this education problem is not going away. Our workforce problem is not going away. We got to use the best that we know how. And we got to build ships, and we got to build them fast. And but they got to be good ships. And I think working with our allies is going to be one way for us to address this problem. What's your thoughts on unmanned vessels like sail drones that we make in our state of Alabama? Are you familiar with those?
Senator, I am familiar with them. Those are type of technologies that are crucial. Sail drones are a part of the fabric of how we improve our maritime domain awareness. You've, I'm sure, heard of the instantiations we've had with our Task Force 59 in the Arabian Gulf using those type of technologies. We've had them in the Gulf of America with our Southern Border Watch, using them there with Fourth Fleet and other places. So yes, that's a part of exactly what we need to network persistent capabilities where I don't want manned vessels spending time just collecting things that unmanned can do much more affordably and effectively. Yeah,
those have been used well down in the Caribbean on a war on drugs, and we're proud of how they've worked, and we need to continue to expand that. I don't think there's any doubt about that. A lot of eyes out there that we don't have to man people and train people, but it's good that you go along with it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Senator Shaheen.
Well, thank you. Congratulations, Admiral Caudle. Thank you to you and your family for your willingness to continue to serve this country. And thank you for taking time to meet with me when we had the opportunity to discuss, among other things, the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. I very much appreciated your commitment to ensuring that the shipyard is able to hire the workers that they need. I know that Secretary Phelan has also committed to that. But as we talk to folks at the shipyard, there's still a challenge with being able to onboard the folks that they would like to hire. There's still not clarity coming from the Department of Defense, OPM, and other federal agencies about the fact that they are supposed to be exempted from the reduction in force, full stop. And so, again, I appreciated your commitment to work on this, but if you could just let me know what you think is the challenge and how we assure the public shipyards that they are exempt from that hiring freeze.
Well, Senator, thanks for meeting me. And as I told you, I did bring my Portsmouth clan with me, and they're happy to sit here and part of the great city of Portsmouth, which we talked about quite a bit. I love that shipyard. It's an incredible national treasure. Any delay to onboard a worker who wants to serve their country and build our ships needs to be eliminated. So you have my full commitment, if confirmed, that I'll work with Secretary of the Navy and the administration, OMB, and my team to streamline the onboarding of workers who want to go build our ships and repair our submarines. So you have my commitment on that, ma'am.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that you have a Portsmouth contingent. That means you'll come up to our neck of the woods on a regular basis, and so if I can ever be helpful and meet you at the shipyard to talk about the good work they're doing there, please let me know. We also talked about the shipyard optimization, infrastructure optimization program, and some of the challenges that it's had. Obviously, the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard is as the first to have the SIOP program is doing great work, but there are competing priorities at the 4 public shipyards for those SIOP funds. So can you talk about how you think about those priorities and how you will evaluate those competing needs that each of our shipyards have?
Well, when it comes to this, you know, the heart of my discussion today has this at the very point of it, that I'd like to get out of the competition for those funds. So I want to, if that means advocating for more top line to get that, then I may need to advocate for more top line, because I can't say I want to increase the repair capability and then underfund the exact thing that needs to be done to actually do that. So if I'm forced to do that, I will have to make my advice and recommendations to the Secretary of the Navy and how we build out our budget recommendations. But I'd rather just make sure that we are fully funding the SIOP program lines so that we're not faced with that. There is nothing more crucial than Portsmouth's operation up there of what they're doing with the super flood basin, and the refueling docks there to actually refuel the Los Angeles class submarine needed to add capacity to our submarine force in a period of time when I'm trying to get back to 2.0 per year of Virginia class. These Los Angeles class refueled play a vital role in bridging a trough that plays an important role to our overall defense strategy. So I'm committed to prioritizing to the extent I can Portsmouth's venture up there to make sure that project is not delayed because of the nature of that work being so vital.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I share that view. So with that in mind, can you talk about the challenges that it presents for the Navy as you're looking at these competing priorities and you're trying to fully fund your request, what a continuing resolution does to your efforts to ensure that you have the resources you need?
Yes, Senator. Continuing resolutions are highly disruptive, as many have sat in this chair, I'm sure, has said. It prevents us from having good planning horizons. It tampers with the timing of contracts for maintenance. It prevents me from necessarily having the long lead time materials purchased, so that when these maintenance periods start, I know that I can start and accomplish these in a timely fashion. So continuing resolutions are highly discouraged because it really tampers with my ability to stabilize workforce, have good streams of supply parts, and do all the things necessary that we've talked about but in our office call to make sure that we're delivering the submarines on time.
Well, thank you. I hope this Congress can do a better job so that you're not faced with continuing resolutions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. Senator Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, great to see you again. Congratulations on this most important nomination. I love the United States Navy. I'm a veteran of the United States Navy Reserves, and I can't imagine someone better at a time like this to lead the Navy than you, and we appreciate your service to our country. You attended the Crane Naval Surface Warfare Center breakfast on Capitol Hill a month or so ago. You're familiar with Crane. You've been there before. It's very important to the great state of Indiana. It's the third largest Navy base in the world, and it happens to be landlocked in southern Indiana. Can you talk about it and its importance to the U.S. Navy and to our national security?
Well, Senator, thanks for our meeting, and thanks for advocating for Crane. It is a jewel. It's such an inherent part of our combat systems, our strategic systems programs. As I spoke at the breakfast, and I was honored to do that, and I learned more about Crane in the preparation for that, of what it does for electronic warfare, for spy systems, for Admiral Wolf's strategic systems programs, and as part of his role for conventional prompt strike, and his role in developing other nuclear weapon capabilities. So I think as we talked a bit about, I'm not sure a lot of people know what happens there because it is in its position, but you have my full commitment to make sure that Crane gets the prominence it deserves because it is a world-class organization.
It would be great to have you come back and visit after you're confirmed to see how far Crane has come since the last time that you were there, and I hope to host you when you come back in your new position. Can you talk about what Congress can do to further support the programs that are happening at Crane?
Well, I think it's important that they tie directly to our modernization programs. So when, in our Navy budget, when we're trying to modernize our capabilities, those funding lines need to make sure they're whole, because we're that world-class work on making sure those extraordinary, exquisite systems that are part of our Aegis and spy radar combat systems, as example, our self-defense, active defense systems for our surface ships are all done there. They tie directly to our point defense, to our offense. And so when we modernize the ship and we want to put the best kit in the world, when I'm already constrained in capacity, we can have no chinks in the armor that work is done. And the professionals at Crane are part of that, Senator.
I want to work with you on that to support the important work that's going on there. You've talked today a great deal already about shipbuilding and how we have to do better to build ships faster and to build them more cost efficiently. In the big, beautiful bill that we just passed, the reconciliation bill, it included $450 million for autonomy and AI in naval shipbuilding. How can commercial AI software help speed up shipbuilding and make our shipbuilding workforce more effective?
Well, Senator, I think we're just on the tip of the iceberg of leveraging it. So when you think of the thousands of work documents that have to be processed to build a ship, and what large language models can do to do that much more effectively than humans can do, by just using the volumes of records we already have as the data source, that's one area. AI can go in and look for trends, can find bottlenecks, can actually examine large volumes of data much more effectively than humans can do, and so that we can attack things that are slowing us down. AI can actually drive robotic systems in the production so that the assembly lines and the areas for production welding and other things that are being done with autonomous systems are optimized. So there's just countless ways that this needs to be incorporated, and I think our yards need to embrace it more. That's going to take workforce development to get the right people there and to make sure that we can deliver that type of capability in those yards.
What are the downsides to deploying AI to speed up the shipbuilding process?
I see no downside. There's often a narrative that it takes the place of jobs. I don't agree with that. I think it shifts to jobs. We want workers to get trained in different areas, to oversee the algorithms, help develop those. It still has to be managed and overseen, and the production part of that still requires high-quality jobs. So I don't see a reduction in it. I actually see an increased opportunity for more workforce.
I completely agree and fully support your nomination. You're going to be a great CNO. I look forward to working with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Banks. Senator Rosen.
Well, thank you, Chairman Wicker, for holding this hearing. And thank you, Admiral Caudle, for meeting with me this week. We had such a great conversation. And I thank you for your lifetime of service, for your family's lifetime of service, your willingness to continue to serve our country. And you brought up the great work of Task Force 59 just a few minutes ago, and I just have to mention that I was able to visit Task Force 59 when I was in Bahrain a few years ago along the Fifth Fleet. They are doing amazing things to map, protect our waterways, and I look forward to seeing all the developments they bring to us. But I'm going to move on to Fallon and what we talked about, Fallon Naval Air Station and its modernization. Because as we talked about in our meeting, Nevada is proud to host Naval Air Station Fallon. It's home to Top Gun and our nation's premier carrier air wing and SEAL training centers. And I was also corrected by a Marine earlier this week who said, don't forget to talk about the Marines that train there too. So the Nevada delegation worked closely with the Navy, federal agencies, tribal governments, local stakeholders for years to secure the Fallon Range Training Complex modernization in the FY23 NDAA. It expands our range by over 600,000 acres to meet critical national security training needs. And so now the Navy's moving forward with modernization. I again want to underscore the importance of fully meeting the legal requirements that grazing permit holders will no longer be able to use this land, that they receive their full and complete compensation for a lifetime of losses. And unfortunately, the initial payment offers to the ranchers on the B-16 range have fallen well below their expectations and estimated value. Appraisals must not only consider land value, but also FSA loans, groundwater access, and a lifetime worth of lost business itself. Permit holders' grazing losses should be treated as a complete loss, not a buyout. This means, for example, valuing heads of cattle at the full market rate over time. So, Admiral Caudle, if confirmed, will you commit to reviewing, reassessing the Navy's payment offers on the latest input that the team in Northern Nevada has received from many departments to ensure that the permittees are making whole and that we calculate this value over time?
Well, Senator Rosen, thank you for our office call. And Fallon is another national treasure. I get out there at least once a year, if not more often. They do certify our air combat and strike fighters to the world-class fighters that they are. In fact, I've had several of the Air Warfare Development Center commanders have worked for me, so I have a little touch of an imprint out there. What I committed to you in the office, and I will again here, is transparency in this process. I'm fully committed to that. I want to understand I'll call it the algorithm by which the compensation is being reviewed. I will work with my team, if confirmed, to make sure I work with your team and get out there and talk with people if necessary, to make sure that we compensate this in accordance with the regulation, rules, and law to the best of my ability if I'm confirmed.
Well, I'm hoping that you'll commit. We'll just schedule a meeting with maybe my team, some of the impacted stakeholders, and they can speak for themselves, bring you up to speed as we embark on this journey.
Thank you. I commit to that.
Perfect. Thank you. Fallon Housing, we talked about the remoteness of Naval Air Station Fallon. It's a major asset. It provides all the training range that space needed to ensure the fleet is deployable and operationally ready. It's been designated as a remote duty installation since 1989, and a lot of quality of life challenges as many folks have to live in Reno or Carson City, well over an hour away. And it's actually the only naval base in the continental U.S. designated with a critical housing shortage. And so it's really, really challenging as you're going to grow, expand the range, and you need not only military housing, but civilian housing as well. We know that you're going to enter into a public-private venture to build 172 new homes in Fallon, but we need more infrastructure, water treatment plants, and other things. And so will you commit on updating me with the status of this project? And also, in order for all of us to go forward, we have to talk about infrastructure like the wastewater treatment plant, and hoping we could schedule a meeting to discuss that as well.
Senator, yes, I commit to all of that.
Thank you. Growing, you have to have all the pieces and parts in order to grow, and so we just have to continue to keep pace with the infrastructure. And the last thing I'm going to get in quickly, we talked about the Sheckler Reserve outside the Fallon Naval Air Station. It's experienced frequent flooding over the past decade. It floods our B-16 range, and it renders training, it just can't happen when it's flooded. And so the Bureau of Reclamation owns the reservoir, but the flooding's on the Navy base. And so again, I think it's just a meeting of the minds to try to get this done, because when it floods, and we've seen flash floods in Texas and other places, Nevada's prone to that, we have to get this done so people can complete their training and their mission, and I hope you'll commit to meeting with me.
Thank you, Senator. I will. I'll find out who owns this. Everything's about ownership.
We're going to figure that out,
We'll
get it
figure
done.
it out. I
Thank
commit
you.
to that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. This concludes today's hearing. I want to thank our witness for his testimony. For the information of members, questions for the record will be due to the committee by 12 noon tomorrow, Friday, July 25th. And we are adjourned.